Hey guys, it's Mario here today with another guest, a guy who I really wanted to feature on my channel for a long time now, a guy who I've known his content for a while. He is from a YouTube channel called Simple Programmer. His name is John Sonmez. Welcome, John. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. It's pretty cool to be on a channel that I also watch the content pretty frequently. So
Awesome, dude. Yeah, I kind of have that programming background, so when I saw like simple programmer, oh, I'm probably gonna resonate with that a little
yeah,
bit. And for the people that don't know you, can you kind of share a little bit of your story? What do you do? A bit about your content and things like that.
sure. So I was a typical software developer for a good 15 years or so. Had a pretty successful career, right? Nothing to complain about. But I also, especially earlier in my life, was a very shy person, very unathletic, lacked the let's say the lady skills. Like I just was afraid to talk to women, afraid to like anything, and just had a lot of struggles. And over time, I learned to overcome a lot of those things, and especially in the last probably 5 years, I really transformed as a person. Started to really recognize that I could really be whatever I wanted to be. That I didn't have to fit this mold. That I was really limiting myself. I had a lot of limiting beliefs. And so what I ended up doing was first started about doing a lot of courses on a company for a company called Pluralsight, technical courses, and I was really successful with that. And then I started to make this shift. I started to realize that a lot of the content that I was creating on my blog and a lot of the things I was doing, that people were more interested in the non-technical stuff I was talking about, like how to deal with your life as a software developer, but then even more so how to just like get in shape, how to like get mental toughness and all of these type of things. So I started to shift my content, and I found that was sort of the sweet spot. That was something that I enjoyed. I'm always improving myself. I'm always developing myself as a person, and I share that. So now, Simple Programmer, what I do is basically my niche, like most of my audience, is software developers, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
basically helping them to do what I did. I'm helping them to transform their lives. What are the goals? Because I think a lot of software developers, they really focus on the technical ability, and it's important to have that skill, but all those other areas of your life, from relationships to the mental attitude to fitness and finance and all of those things, all kind of are really, really important to develop as a person and to really achieve the best that you can in life. So really Simple Programmer now is focused on making software developers better. So if my one liner is, I make software developers cool. So
Awesome, dude. And that's, I guess, why I resonate with your content so much because you just not, I was like, here's the JavaScript, I don't know, hack or something, here's the how to do C sharp or whatever, It's more like, okay, here's how you can balance everything. Here's how you can actually live the life of a software developer and become the best human being that you can become through all these other areas of your life. How do you deal with all the stress? How do you deal with all these things that are robbing you of your productivity and things like that? And I really got a lot out of that as someone who is, of course, I mean, I'm not a developer, but I can still relate to your content a lot. And we kind of think in a very similar, I think, kind of engineering way, where
yeah.
we're looking at things through systems and through how to incorporate certain things that are repeatable and measurable and how to actually get results from life. And that's, I guess, why I kind of resonate with the content. Now, speaking of balance and speaking of, I guess, how to kind of I guess how to combine how to juggle all these balls and how to keep them all in the air and flowing. That's one thing that I'm impressed very much about your work is that you got the business side of things handled. Your social skills are pretty on point. Your fitness is pretty on point. You're in incredible shape. Like most people don't really know that. I mean, unless they watch some of your videos where you're actually like training and stuff like that. Like most people, it's like a programmer. He must be out of shape, like.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and also the purpose stuff. I mean, you talked a lot about that as well. How do you balance all of that, man? Like, what's your like concept there? What's your secret?
So, there's a few different things that I do. I think one of the most critical things I'd advise people, and that I had to do myself, was to measure how I was spending my time, right? And when you actually track it, when you actually track how you're spending your time, you'll be amazed how much time that you waste, right? There's usually a lot of time that's wasted. So when I first started doing that, I saw like places where I was wasting time. And one of the things that I found that most people waste time is and people hate this, but watching TV, right? Like I watch zero TV, zero. And for the last maybe 5 or probably 7 years, I haven't watched any. And I in movies, maybe I watch like 2 or 3 a year because most of them are crap anyway, and it's just a waste of time, right? It's like a lot of people like it every night is Netflix, and I know that's fun and stuff, but if you really want to get things going in your life and really, you've got a limited amount of time. So that's kind of the base is I think you've got to get your time back. And one of the things that, it depends on which road you're going. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, right, then the most effective way to be an entrepreneur is to get your time back. And so the way that you do that is that you purchase it, you unmortgage your life is what I call it, which basically means like you've got to pay a debt to live, right? And it's working for someone else for 8 hours a day. So if I want to unmortgage my life and get more of my time back, what I want to do is I want to reduce my expenses as much as possible. What's the smallest amount that I could live on? And then how can I build just enough passive income or on the side of business that can just support me where I can just eat macaroni and cheese or whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, your lifestyle is not going to be great, but you'll have 8 hours a day more. You'll have your time. So I think that's one of the, and that's one of the things that I did. But now, like managing it all today, I would say that a lot of it is quotas, right? So when I have sort of this do or die mentality, so I am not going to miss the gym because I don't make a decision, right? What I do is I make rules. So all ahead of time, I have rules and I set my life and I live my life by these rules. Yesterday was run day, so I ran 10 miles. I didn't say, I don't feel like running 10 miles today. Maybe I'll just do 8. No, it's 10. That's what's on the chart. So that's what I'm doing. Today I'll be lifting and I'll be doing my routine and I'm not going to question it. I'm just doing it. What I'm supposed to eat, what I'm supposed to produce. I'm supposed to do 2 YouTube videos a day. So damn it, I'm doing 2 YouTube videos a day. That's how it's going to go. And so I set up all these quotas and systems in place and make rules about it. And I doesn't mean that I don't modify them, but because I have those rules, right? We all have bad judgment. I have horrible judgment. If you ask me, John, do you want to eat the chocolate cake or do you want to eat, this healthy salmon steak or whatever? I'm going to choose the chocolate cake, right? I can't be trusted. But if I have a rule ahead of time that says that, this is what you're eating, then that's what I'm eating. And it's the same thing, so I try to eliminate judgment from my life as much as possible by planning and making rules ahead of time so I know what I'm supposed to do in given situations, and then I can always modify that, right? It's almost like my whole life is a system, and I can tweak the system. I can say, oh, well, that wasn't working. One time I had switched and I was like, okay, on Sundays I'm going to run 20 miles. And that didn't work, but I didn't let myself off the hook right then. I didn't wake up one morning and say, oh, no, I'm not doing it. I forced myself to do it because I committed to it, and that was my rule. But then I modified that the next week and said, okay, that's not going to work. That's like too much. So that's how I end up doing that, and I really just look at all the areas of my life that I want to focus on and grow, and I have like little, because it's a system, I'm constantly improving it. So I'm able to listen to a bunch of audiobooks because while I'm running, I've got that system in place, and I've got a system of how to know what books to pick, and so I just really try and think of my entire life that way.
I like that. It kind of reminds me of this, I guess, concept of surrendering to the schedule, right? You just have the schedule and you surrender, right? That's what you're going to do. It's not a question whether that day you're going to wake up and there's no plan. You already kind of know,
Right.
okay, this is the day of that, and that's going to happen today. And it gives your mind probably a very clear direction. At least for me, what it does kind of focuses all my energy. Otherwise, it's going to be like dissipated all over the place, and I'm just going to be kind of tapping into everything. And one funny thing is like people kind of probably get an idea, oh, this guy doesn't live his life at all, right? It's probably like this guy is just locked up in his basement. He's probably not like doing anything. And we're going to talk a bit about that. But one thing I guess I'll just share a tiny bit of my own experience is that I can't even enjoy that Netflix hour a week or 2 hours a week that I have, or gaming, whatever I do, if for the other time I wasn't productive. I can't
Right.
even enjoy it with a clear conscience. Is that there's something, there's an incongruence there that it hurts. Now, how do you incorporate playtime?
So I just plan it. So, and I have to kind of balance this, right? So I think there's different modes and there's different seasons of life as well, right? So if you're someone, like if you're watching this video and you're someone who is starting out in life and you want to be a successful person and you don't have you don't have the physique you want right now, you don't have the money, you don't have the business, you don't have the career, right? You don't have that, then you got to say no. I don't have friends right now. I don't have social life. I mean, very minimal, right? And you got to say it's fucking grind mode now, right? It's grind time, and that's the season of life that you're in. If you want to achieve those things, and I had to do it. I had to sacrifice everything in my life and just do the grind, right? For a long time in order to get there. That's one season, and that's the best way to be successful. And I think the reason why I give this advice is because a lot of people reach success and they say, "Oh, I wish that I wouldn't have worked as hard when I was younger." And that's bullshit, because they're in a different season now. Now they don't need to do that and in order to get there. But in order to make it, you've got to work, you got to outwork people. That's the one thing. Like if you've got nothing going in your life, the one thing that you can always have is the ability to outwork people. So that's what I would say. But then now the season that I'm at in my life now, I'm not in that grind mode as much anymore. I don't have to. I've already built passive income. I've already built up the physique. I just have to maintain and keep the ball moving forward. I still want to grow. I still want to expand. So what I do now is I plan out some time, right? So I still play some video games, right? Now I didn't do it when I was in grind mode. I shut that down, right? Because I needed to get that done. But now it's like, okay, I schedule, but I plan it out so I don't feel guilty, right? So I plan out my work, and in fact, I limit my work to some degree. I use what's called the Pomodoro Technique a lot of the time. And so what it is basically, to simply explain it, you set a timer for 25 minutes, you focus on one single task. When that timer ticks off, you take a 5-minute break, and that's one Pomodoro, and you keep on doing that. And so I schedule my day in that, how many Pomodoro am I going to do of work? And then I give myself, I plan out. But the key that I found, is that I have to plan out ahead of time. So if no time is wasted. I always say, unless that you're doing what you don't intend, right? So if I intend, if I say I'm just going to sit on the couch and watch TV for 2 hours, if that's my intention and I do it, that's great. That's a great way to spend my time. I have not wasted my time because I chose to do that. When you're wasting your time is when you're supposed to be doing something, you're supposed to be writing a report or making something or doing some work, and you sit on the couch and watch TV for 2 hours. Then you feel guilty. Then you've wasted your time because you haven't used it as you've chosen. So that's the big thing. It's like, I'm going to go out probably tonight. I'm here in Boise, Idaho. I'm going to go, hang out and party with some of my friends, but I'm going to get my shit done first. So I'm going to go hit the gym first. I'm going to go eat my meal. I'm going to get my work done, and then I'll have that. But I've planned that out. It's not going to be, a spontaneous thing where I'm like, oh man, I'm not getting stuff done. So I think that's really the key. At least for me, someone being, I can't enjoy it, like you said, unless I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But and I've gone through phases in my life where I had to recognize that, you've got to cut yourself some slack. Like, you can't be grinding for 10 years. It doesn't work that way, right? You've got to have some fun and actually enjoy your life. So I find a pretty good balance. I actually have a lot of fun. I go out, but I get my shit done as well. So.
Awesome, man. I like the fact that you mentioned, it almost reminds me of this concept of dark years. It's like to have these dungeon years where you're just locked up. And it is true. It is true. It's about saying no. It's about creating boundaries for a very, very long time. And I totally know how it is to lose a bunch of friends. You probably lost a bunch of people as well in your life. And those who waited long enough, they kind of, I guess, got to meet the new you. You kind of come out of that cave and you're like this whole new person now. Here's my business. Here's my body. Here's my stuff, and I've committed to the grind. And another point there that you made is like, I guess for like, if you're really committed to the grind and if you're a hardcore action taker, it's more stressful for you to actually not to do the work that you need to do than it is to try to relax. When I try to relax, I go to the beach. If I haven't done stuff that I need to do, I'm stressed. Like I'm legit stressed. Instead, if I was grinding, I wouldn't have been stressed. It's like a stress relief in one way, which is super, super cool. Now, I know a lot of people watching this, and if I look back on my own journey, if I was watching this, I'd be like, okay, I got the point. You guys are super motivated. You're grinding. You're crushing it. You're doing all this stuff. But here's the problem. I wake up the next day and I forget the why. I forget
Yeah.
that sense of urgency, right? Because you wake up, you sleep over it. Sounds like a really good idea today. Then you wake up tomorrow, it's like, it's kind of died down. How do you remind yourself of the vision? How do you remind yourself of the sense of urgency to actually do the things that you need to do?
So I firmly believe that there's very few moments of absolute clarity that you get in your life. And when you do, that's a gift, and you need to make the most of it at those times, because most of the time we're just running the routine. We're just doing and we're not seeing the bigger picture. So those times when I get that vision, when I want to make changes, what I try to do two things. It's sort of two strategies here. One of them is what I already kind of talked about with setting the rules, right? Is I understand, like, if I know that emotions change every day, right? And motivation change. And if you are trying to accomplish your goals based on motivation or passion, you might as well give up now, because it's just not going to happen. Because you're going to be days, you just have to know that you're going to wake up and you're going to feel zero motivation. You're going to say, I don't know why, I don't want this anymore. But that's not true, because you know that in your heart of hearts, at the time when you did have that vision, when you did have that, like I said, that moment of clarity, there was a reason why you set on this course. And so what I have convinced myself, and what I do is when I have those moments, I set the rules, I set the path, and I commit to going down that path regardless of, and I've already preconditioned myself to know that tomorrow I may not feel motivated. I may not want to do this. It's like when people say, whatever I tell you, don't let me smoke a cigarette. I don't care how much I beg, right? It's the same thing, except I'm telling myself that. It's like I've already made the contract. I've already thought about it ahead of time, so it's not a shock. And I know that I'm going to regret this decision, but I'm going to do it anyway, because, like, most people give up. Most people can, they get excited about a project, they go down a path and they do a thing until they lose motivation, which you ultimately, anything you love, you will eventually hate. I promise you that, especially if you get paid for it. And so you got to just convince yourself that no matter what, I am doing this. I'm going to follow, because that, again, it's that grinding out. You'll get to that point and you'll be, and your emotions will change from time to time. Like, so, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll tread water. So I can't, if you can't roll the ball up the hill anymore because you just don't have it, then hold it there. Just don't let it roll down and crush you, and you start over again. Like, if it's, whether it be business or diet or fitness or whatever, what can you do to just tread water until your emotions come back and you feel like you can make another push, make another sprint up the hill. So that's one of the things that I do. And then the other thing that I do for this is that I'm trying to think, like, so I talked about making the contract and the rules. Oh, the other thing is the tether. So right now I've got on my wrist a band from Tony Robbins' UPW event, right? At various times I've used different reminders, different tethers, because I think of it as like, you're an astronaut out in space, and you're going away from the spaceship, right? And the further you go away from that spaceship, you need that tether to pull you back. And anytime that you, like, fall off the horse, or you lose that motivation or something, you need something that reminds you. So every time that I look at my wrist, I'm like, okay, these are the commitments that I've made, and it also reminds me of when I made them, the physical state I was in, what I was thinking, and so I can go back and remember that. And it's like, this is the why. It's sitting there on my wrist. At different points in time, I've shaved my head, and that's a big reminder, because every time you look in the mirror, you're like, okay, I'm on a mission. This is what I'm doing. So you've got to have, I think, both of those elements. One, just pre-thinking it ahead of time and knowing that whatever decision you're making, you're going to hate it and you're going to want to not do this, but you're going to follow through anyway, because damn it, that's the only way that you're actually going to get results. Then two, have some kind of reminder of that why that you can see every day.
Yeah, like the first point is very interesting, because there's this honeymoon phase with everything. There's this first initial push when you're super motivated, when you're putting out videos, so feels great. But then after the video number 420, you're like, okay, this has no end. It's almost like a realization that the journey doesn't really have an end to it. It's like that kind of realization. It's very similar to, I guess, in terms of physique, when you realize that if you don't continue challenging yourself, that you're not going to grow anymore, or if you don't even continue challenging yourself, you can't even maintain. That's how cruel
Right.
the world is. It's
Yeah.
almost like a realization that the world is not fair, right? That's what it reminds me of. It's like, okay, if you don't really work for it, you don't get it. And that's, I guess, a hard truth for a lot of people to realize. Now, speaking of, let's say, hard truths, let's say if I could like throw back a clock or something and get you back 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself? Like, what would you kind of like, if you could, let's say, phrase something, what would you give yourself as a piece of advice to kind of your younger John version?
I think the biggest piece of advice, well, okay, so I'll kind of break this down into two pieces. But I would say that the biggest thing I would say to myself is that the difference of giving it a really good effort and an extreme effort is a five-fold result. So if you do 98%, you get let's say a 1x result. But if you do 100%, just that 2% more, you get a 5x result instead. And so, and it's very true, like especially in fitness, right? Like the difference between going to the gym and having a diet that is like 90% on point and having it 100% on point, you get so much more results, right? It's like this knife's edge, right? There's this balance, and if you're willing to go the further that you go, because you got to do so much in order to like just hit the maintenance point, and then everything after that is bonus. And some people like stop there, or they just go just slightly above what they need, and but if you go a little bit further, right? It's the same thing like I've done on YouTube with doing like 2 videos a day, right? It's like it's not that much harder, but you get so much better results if you're going to go that far already, right? And I've learned this with running too, is to run, the difference between running a 5-mile run and a 10-mile run, it's really not that much harder, but the result that you get is a lot better. Like you get a lot more out of that. If you're trying to run.
Double the volume, right? Double the volume. It's like everything. Double the challenge as well. I mean, in terms of like how much you get out of it, in terms of an adaptation response. It's like 10 miles. 5 is but getting started, as you mentioned, is really the hardest point, right? Is that where people break?
Yeah. Because they don't, they think that, well, and I'll kind of go back to that other point that you're talking about. There was actually the best thing that I'd seen on the topic of this is there's a book by David Data called The Way of the Superior Man, and not the audio version, the actual book version, because they're different. But the very first chapter of the book, like the very first sentence of the book, is really like is stop waiting for things to be done, stop waiting for things to be finished, to so that you can rest. Right? It's like that. It's essentially it's always a battle, and like that was a mindset shift, and that's one that the other piece of advice I'd give myself, and I think that's what's critical as a beginner, is to realize like it's not like you're going to go climb this mountain and be done and sit at the top, right? And I think a lot of people, especially in fitness and trying to lose weight or trying to get in shape or get 6-pack abs, they're like, okay, I just got to do this and then I'll get there. Well, you're not, it doesn't. If you have that attitude, you're never going to get there in the first place. You got to kind of say like, you got to stop wishing for life to be easier. You got to stop wishing that. Stop, trying to get through things, and you got to realize like every day is going to be a struggle. Every day is going to be a battle, but that is what makes life. And like once you embrace that, once you let go of that, of the condition that you have to get somewhere so that you can finally be free, you can finally take a rest. Then life changes. Then you're able to be equipped and have the motivation and do that because you recognize that. But people that are always trying to get through life and trying to find the easy way and make it through, they don't. And that's going back to. That was me for too long of a period of time. I was just trying to do what I needed to get done, and I didn't realize that if I would have doubled my efforts, if I would have put in the extra time, again, not just in fitness, but in my business, in my career, in whatever I was doing, if I would have put in that little, because there's so much momentum, right, to just get the ball rolling. So once you got the ball rolling, you gotta press your luck. You gotta push harder on that because that's a wasted energy. And every day it takes, it's the same thing. Like the difference, I'd say, like to talk more to weightlifting, like going to the gym. If you go to the gym, like just getting up out of bed and putting on your clothes and getting there, that's a huge amount of effort. So if you just do a half-assed job at the gym, that's such a, like, it's not that much harder to do a
Yeah.
full ass job.
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? But you
Yeah.
get so much better results. So if you're going to do all the effort of doing that, right, then take it the extra step. Or the same thing with the dieting. Like if you're doing intermittent fasting, like if you fasted all day and then like at time to break your fast, you totally blow it and eat a bunch of crap. Like you wasted you already did so much effort, like going without it and doing what you're supposed to do. So now just take it to completion. And that was my
Such
biggest
a good
weakness.
concept. I
So
love the concept, dude. Like I love the concept because it's so grounded in psychology as well. They call this activation energy because the energy you need to activate a habit, it's much greater than maintaining the habit itself.
yep,
So once you
yep,
kick in the momentum, it's like so much easier. Like that example of getting out of bed, putting on your shoes, clothes, and backpack, and just hitting the gym. Like that's 80% of the almost the effort. Once you're there, it's like okay, I'm there, and now I'm in this environment where I'm gonna put in the extra work. Like I'm already here, so might as well do my best. And I know this from my own experience. You know, sometimes you feel like crap. You feel like you're not gonna get a good workout in, and you start thinking black and white. And
yeah,
then you get out of that black and white mindset and you're like, okay, let me just do the first exercise of the day. Then you go in there and in the third exercise you hit a PR. And that PR would have never happened if you stayed home. Very, very
exactly.
powerful. And another thing is like, I think in your field you can probably, I guess, know more about this than me. But I think it's like from people I hire as freelancers, as programmers, developers, you can clearly see who are the guys that have that extra edge. Like the guy
Yeah,
that just tries a little bit extra stands out. It's like so many average people, but there's that 1% that you talked about there. It's like that puts the extra edge. And I'm like, okay, that's the guy. You know, that's the guy who's gonna.
exactly.
I see that the guy is emailing me at like 2:30 in the morning his time. You know, this guy is grinding. You know, I want to hire this guy, right? And is that like I guess is that a trait that we've learned through experience or through books, or how did we learn this? Like, how did you come up with this concept? I mean, where did you get it from?
That's interesting. I think I think a lot of different sources. A lot of the stuff that I come up with just draws from my own personal. I spend a lot of time in thought, just thinking about. I'm always assessing myself. I think this is another important thing. Is like I want to know. I don't want to stick my head in the sand. I want to look at the mirror, and I want to see. I don't want to pretend like the love handles aren't there. I want to see it, right? Like a lot of people want to bury their face and they want to bury their head and they don't want to see the flaws and the problems. And so I really want to see, like, seeing reality is so important. And so it hurts sometimes. Like it's painful to like see that stuff and to see yourself, but then you can't change anything that you're not seeing clearly. You have to do that first. And so
Absolutely.
a lot of what I just it's a lot of the universal kind of wisdom. You'll find it in multiple sources. You'll find it in books, yes, but it won't mean anything to you until you have actually faced the truth yourself. And so that's where a lot of it. Again, I do fill my head with books. I'm reading like 2 to 3 books a week because every time I'm running, I'm doing 40 miles a week right now, and I'm listening
Nice.
to audiobooks at 3x speed. So I get through a lot of books. So a lot. I'm not going to say that every idea I ever come up with is original, but I don't think anyone owns wisdom, right? It's like you
Yeah.
get all these concepts and really it's all the same. Like you listen to different people and you see people that are successful, and I guarantee you, like almost everyone has very similar philosophies in life because they've discovered these truths, whether it be from a book or from someone else or from personal experience. But we all kind of converge on the same path, at least people that are extremely successful in life. And it's because that these are the principles that govern the universe. These are like core principles. And so I think that it's really like it's not someone's idea. It's just you're tapping into, cutting through the layers and finding what is the real truth
Hmm.
underneath that defines the way that things actually work.
It almost feels like that, right? It's like kind of a universal truth, or something that it's like, okay, this is like a simple rule. As a rule of physics does exist, this also exists as a rule of success. I guess, I mean, and you're right. I mean, if you read, regardless whether you read Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, Napoleon Hill, or someone like Dale Carnegie, it's like everybody's living a different life and everybody's living different times, but it's similarities that are
Yeah.
really the ideas that you kind of ultimately discover yourself. And that's really cool about the process of, like, I guess, self-examination. You're always looking at yourself and how you can improve. Now, I want to transition a little bit into fitness because I know people watching this are looking into bettering themselves through this kind of a journey, which is one of the journeys. Now, most people associate a developer with someone out of shape, sedentary lifestyle, practically zero activity, right? That's kind of what I used to be like, right? Now, how do you, I guess, change that identity, or where do you even start? You know, if you're in that kind of situation, where do you start to make your life or you design your lifestyle to be a little bit healthier?
So I think it has to start in the mind. I mean, there's a really good book on the subject called Psychocybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz, and he was a plastic surgeon, and he found that when he changed people's faces, that a lot of times it would change their personality, it would change them completely. And sometimes it wouldn't. And the difference was what he figured out was really that it was self-image, and that we can never ever violate our self-image. What that means is that essentially, if we believe a certain thing about ourselves, right, then we will act in accordance with that. You know, we may temporarily get away from it. We may temporarily go on a diet, but we're going to go back. If we think of ourselves as fat and lazy, we're going to be fat and lazy. We just can't help that. So it has to start there. You have to have the vision. And when I first started on this path of personal transformation, I woke up one morning and I literally, like, I was tired of being picked on. I was tired of, you know, not getting what I wanted in life, and not getting the girls, and not being, you know, being able to be an athlete or anything, you know, be what I deemed successful, what I wanted in life. And then I said, why me? I said, why not me? I said, you know, what's different? You know, there's nothing defective about me. It's only, you know, it's only my mind. So I actually envisioned in my head, I spent some time just envisioning in my head on the person who I wanted to be. And I envisioned how I would talk, and how would I walk, and how would I dress, and you know, all of these things. Just, I mean, it might seem a little bit silly, but I totally had this vision in my head of who I wanted to be. And then I started pretending to be that person, right? And that was the key. It's just like, it's just a role. I just playing the role, right? And it's a little trick. It's like a context shift that can help you anytime that you can, you know, kind of come up with one of those little tricks. But I started pretending. I started acting as if I was already the person. So I always kind of use this mantra of like, act as if you're already who you want to be. Act as if you've already succeeded. Act as if you've already done this 1,000 times before, right? Act as if you could not possibly fail. And so I started acting and playing that part. And you know what happened? Slowly over time, I actually became what I was pretending to be, the role that I was playing. And I think that's really the key, is like, you got to start there. You got to start with the vision, and you can't directly change your beliefs, but you can indirectly change your beliefs by having the vision and then playing the part, acting it. And then eventually that becomes reality. You know, some people call it fake it till you make it, but it's the same kind of concept. And it really is powerful. So if you don't start off with that, then, and you just try to embark on a fitness program or diet or whatever, you're ultimately going to fail, because you haven't changed that self-image. So changing that self-image is the place to start. At least that's my experience.
Yeah, because you're going to get pulled back. And I love the book, by the way, Psycho-Cybernetics. If you haven't read it, for anybody watching this, like, literally, that's like the must read of the century if you're into personal development. Otherwise, I mean, you're going to experience that pull. And every time you reach a goal, there's that pull back. You know, I am that. Why am I eating healthy? Why am I fasting now? Because it's that misalignment, that mismatch between what's happening here and what you're doing. It's not aligned, right? And if your self-image is thinking, well, I should be eating Doritos right now, and you're eating a nice, healthy, balanced meal, you're going to be not congruent with what's happening with reality. And then there's going to be that cognitive dissonance. There's going to be a little bit of pain. And bam, all of a sudden you're reverting back to your old habits. And we can see this especially in weight loss. Very, very, very common. And the book is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it goes really, really deep into this. And once I discovered that concept, I was like, mind blown at first. And I love the fact that you mentioned a little bit of, the, I guess, affirmations and things, because I remember, I don't think I ever said this to anybody. When I was doing cardio, when I was first looking to lean down, I was doing a lot of work. I was doing 5 days in the gym, but also 5 days of cardio. And every cardio session, I was doing like, during the day, it was really, really hot. And while I was running the cardio, the only thing that I would actually think about is how my body would look like with abs. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
almost subconsciously you had these thoughts, and I would be touching my stomach as well, like touching the fat, and I was imagining the fat to be burned off. It sounds like super weird, but it's like you reach that moment of desperation where you really don't know anything else. Like you're doing everything physically. Now it's like, okay, what can I think that it's going to make it better? And I don't know. I mean, maybe it helped. Maybe it created this obsessive person that I am right now, with at least with fitness, so committed. I don't know, right? You never really know. Speaking of books, what are you reading right now?
Oh, let me see. You know what? I just finished. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I just finished Truth by Neil Strauss. I've
Mm-hmm.
been waiting for that to. I'd been putting off that because I was like, I don't know if I want to read this book, but it's actually pretty good. It was very very deep, very interesting
Really? Yeah.
book. I didn't have very high expectations for that book, but it was really good. Let me see what a couple of my recents
Check out
were.
Audible or whatever app is on it.
Yeah,
It's like sometimes you read so many books that you're thinking, what am I reading right now? Because you don't even remember the title anymore. You don't want to insult the author. You know, people are usually asking
exactly.
me
Yeah.
on the live stream, and I know what the book is about, but I don't want to insult the person if I tell, like, if I say the wrong name of the author or something,
Oh
because
yeah,
because
exactly.
it's like similar, you know. And yeah, take your time, but it's super cool. I mean, as personally I can say, like, reading a book a week, game changer, absolutely, like
Yeah,
a game changer. Even
absolutely.
I mean, I'm a big proponent of taking action. Like I'm huge. Like if you're just reading, if you're not taking any action, you're just literally wasting your time. But
Right.
to be fair, even if you're not implementing 99% of the things out of the book, it's gonna get you back on track. I mean, we all
Yeah.
know that kind of success curve, or that person is like falling all off course. Reading a book can actually, like, kind of nudge you back on course. At least the way I kind of feel like it when I read, especially a biography, and it
Yeah.
kind of nudges you back on track with success when you kind of fell off. You know, you can't really slack if you read Arnold Schwarzenegger's biography. You know, it's gonna. It's just the fact that
Exactly.
you're listening to his stories, like, okay, I gotta go back to work. You know. Okay, what were the books?
Actually, funny. Total Recall was one that I just read recently.
Awesome.
I really enjoyed that. That was really good. What Doesn't Kill Us. That was like a book that I like. I had to buy that book. Like when I saw that title, What Doesn't Kill Us, it was like
Nice.
insta buy. I mean, how am I not going to buy that book? Trying to think what else. I actually read Elon Musk's biography.
Mm-hmm.
What else was that? Oh, you know what's good? This is old. The Art of Worldly Wisdom by Gracian Baltzar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's
I've
really
I've
old
haven't
stuff,
heard
but
I haven't read it. I've heard someone mention that book. I haven't read it. I need to check my Goodreads. I have a list there to see if it's added. Pretty cool. Pretty cool, man. Now, going back to, let's say, if you could recommend, I don't know, your top three. I know it's really hard to give a top
yeah,
list of books. I mean, it's like one of the most painful questions that I get.
exactly.
I know it's a pain for you as well, but let's kind of give people, I guess, where maybe someone who's getting started with personal development, what would you recommend?
Let me pull up my list. I've got my list here. This way I don't have to like try to come up with because it always changes too. So I might
It's
actually make
true. It is
modifications.
true. It updates all the time. For me personally, the only book that really stood up on top among the top five, I would say, is Psycho-Cybernetics, which we already mentioned, and No Excuses by Brian Tracy. Those are the two that kind of
Yeah.
I just end up recommending very frequently. I don't know why. It's just like I feel like they covered so much.
So I'd say, okay, so a short book that's really, really good that just has the mindset that you
Hmm.
need to have is called As a Man Thinketh. I think it's by James Abel. Is that right? Old book, published in 1902. Very short book, but
Hmm.
very, very, very good. Like, or James Allen, that's it.
James
I
Allen.
yeah,
Okay, as a man thinking.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it is just a very concise philosophy of like everything that we've talked about that is very critical to have. It's the opposite of the victim mentality. Very, very
Hmm.
good stuff.
Hmm.
A lot, especially a lot of today, I don't mean to like offend millennials, but a lot of the youth today, like they have the victim mentality, and it's not even their fault because they just don't even realize what it is, but they've sort of developed this. And so like if you feel like you might at all have the victim mentality, you've got to break out of that and realize to take responsibility and ownership for your life. For someone who also, I'd say, who's struggling with that, Grant Cardone stuff is actually really, really good. 10x and be
I like
obsessed
his
with the average.
10x. Yeah, I really like his 10x. It's like a push. It's like a massive wave of energy when you're just listening to his voice. He's a little bit repetitive, but actually you need it. Like you need it.
Yeah.
If you're reading that book, you need that repetition in order to really get the idea, because the idea is simple, but you need to hear it a thousand times before it kind of gets in there and really starts becoming effective.
And actually, that's like just a sidetrack for a minute. That's one of the important things. I think, I'd mentioned before that you can't directly change your beliefs, right? Even though you want to, you can't, but you can indirectly. And one way to indirectly change your beliefs, which change your self-image, which changes your life, is to surround yourself, put in your ears the thing that's why mantras and I think in affirmations tend to work. And that's why reading the same book over and over, listening to the book, or like, hearing the same thing, different authors saying the same thing, it changes your belief, because what you surround yourself with is what you become, like what you absorb, input, whatever inputs come into you, that's what changes you. And that's how to actually change your beliefs. So Maximum Achievement by Brian Tracy.
Maximum Achievement. Okay.
Now, I like that book because it takes a lot of Tony Robbins stuff. It takes a lot of psycho-cybernetic stuff. It takes a lot of Think and Grow Rich stuff, and it sort of combines all of that stuff together in one. It's a long book, but I feel like that's a really good place to start. Of course, we already talked about psycho-cybernetics.
Yeah. Yeah, Brian's stuff is really good. Brian's stuff is awesome in terms of like just having a simplified kind of version of everything and just like condensed. Here's the full package, I guess. I like his stuff.
I'd say The Way of the Superior Man. I already talked about that one by David Data, but that's really good for men.
So basically, every book that you heard us talk about here in this, you have to get it, right? It is true.
Exactly.
I mean, it is true. Yeah. Like, I mean, people don't realize how many books there is out there. I mean, we talk about like 10 books. 10 books is like nothing. It's not even a drop in an ocean. How many books actually gets published, and how little people read as well. I mean, it's disturbing. It's disturbing to hear that. What was the other one? You mentioned one more?
Let me see. If I had to pick one more, it depends on the context. I mean, some of my videos started playing. So I would say either How to Win Friends and Influence People, of course, is a classic.
Awesome.
But one of my favorites is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one, like if you're dealing with procrastination and you just like motivation, you got to read that. That book will just kick your ass because
that's a classic. Absolutely, it's a classic by far. Any writer, video creator, any kind of content, like if you're struggling with writing your Twitter update or like your status update, this is the book, right? It's gonna really give you that push. Now. Let's give a quick round of questions here. We already talked a bit about productivity. What's your morning routine?
So it changes. My morning routine right now. I'm traveling, so I don't have. I'm realistic in that I can't keep to a morning routine while I'm traveling. But the one that I'm sort of working on right now, and I say sort of because I still haven't found something I really, really like, is that as soon as I get up, then I go and I do 10 minutes of meditation, and then I do a journal. I actually started doing what I call as a fail journal. So what I do is I look at the failures that I had yesterday, and I analyze those, and I try to figure out what could I learn from those failures. And really look at those things and see them as a good thing. So now the failures become, because we learn more from failures. And let's see, then of course I hit my vitamins and whatever supplements that I'm taking, and then I plan my day. Then I plan out my exactly what I'm going to do. I haven't ever been like a huge morning routine person. I don't know. I've never found it to work that well for me. Like I plan my day, I've got routines and I've got quotas for the day, but But the reason why I don't really like morning routines is because I feel like if you mess it up, like you start off the day feeling guilty, and you kind of feel like you've got an obligation at the very beginning of the day. So I haven't really stuck with one. I don't like starting off that. I know a lot of people it works really well for them, but for me it's something that I don't know if I find the right one maybe, but I'm more concerned about what I do during the day and what my weekly routine is rather than particularly just a morning. I try to not restrict, every single aspect of my life. So
Yeah, yeah, I like that because it's always assumed that you have this morning routine, and to be fair, I do have a routine, but I don't execute it every day. Some days I'm just straight out of the, let's say, straight out of the bed to the toilet to the scale and then to work. Like I don't think about anything. Like I wake
yeah,
up with such energy and enthusiasm that I want to tackle something that
yeah.
this taking 10 minutes to meditate at that point would be not very productive at that point. Maybe meditating 10 minutes later would be, so you kind of have to, I guess, adjust it over time. Now, another quick question: are you currently bulking, cutting, or maintaining?
I'm who's not cutting? We're always cutting, right? It's always cutting.
Permacut. Hashtag permacut.
Permacut. Yeah. I'm more on the cutting side right now. I want to get down to about like a rolling average of 7% body fat.
Hmm.
So not just one time step on the scale, but like a 7-day rolling average of 7%. That's sort of my goal, and I really want to kind of maintain at that level. So that's what I'm working on. It's hard with traveling and stuff, and so there's it's definitely difficult. But I'm sticking to my routine. Like I said, I ran 10 miles yesterday, and I fast until 5 o'clock every day.
Hmm.
I keep that up. And so, yeah, so it's pretty much also, metabolism slows down too. So it becomes sort of a difficult, a difficult
Yeah,
thing
yeah. I
to
mean, below
get that.
10%, 10% is the wall. I know that. Like after 10%, it's like,
Exactly.
whoa, okay, let's take it slower. Like the body just pulls like a brake on you and just, okay, wait, let's take it really, really slow. Another quick question: what's your favorite food?
Favorite food? Oh, got to think about this for a second. Hmm. What is my favorite food? Uh,
Like if I told you, hey, you
yeah,
have you're gonna be like fasting for the next 5 days, and you can eat whatever
yeah.
you want tonight as a dinner, what would you pick? Because there's not gonna be any food for the next 5 days.
Gosh, I wonder if it'd be. I'm trying to think if it'd be like, it might be Taco Bell. It might. That's that what I would do?
Dude, it's fine if it's something simple. Like I'm
Yeah.
like just to give me like a, I don't know, a steak and an ice cream for dessert or something. I'm just like whatever, it's simple. Or just give me a little bit of fish. Like that's my salmon and dark chocolate. Just give me that and I'm good to go.
Whatever it'd be a lot of carbs. I know that because it's I'm always the carbs is the thing. Yeah, it might be some kind of pasta. I don't know. Like I don't know if I have a like it depends on what I feel like. So I don't really have like anything that I'm like a staple favorite food. So
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. Cool. Final question before we wrap it up. What's the craziest thing you've done in your life? Like thing that
whoa.
pushed you the most outside of your comfort zone?
Oh, that's interesting. Most out of my. You know what? You know what it might be actually. I'll just. I think I'm going to go with this one, which is, I was at this. I was actually doing this modeling thing. I was a model, worked for this model agency, and we were supposed to work this booth at this Warped Tour concert. And I was backstage, like in the area, and I saw Mark from Blink 182. And I said, hey, what's going on? And he said, hey, do you know where there's a theater around here? I want to see the movie American Pie. We're in the movie, but I haven't seen it yet. And so I was like, oh, and I told him where it was, and then I'm walking by, and then I turned around and I was like, I should just ask him if he wants a ride, right? What's the worst he could do is he could say no. So I went back to him and I said, hey, Mark, would you like a ride? Like I could take you there. And he's like, Sure, dude. Yeah, let me get the rest of the band and see if they want to go. So the entire Blink 182 band piled into my Geo
Uh,
Metro. Okay. And I
nice.
drove him to the movie theater, and I mean, it was taking a shot, and we went to the theater. We saw American Pie. That, it was the first time they were seeing American Pie. They were in American Pie, and then I took them back, and just in time for them to get on stage. They gave me and the friend I was with and the girls that we were with. Actually, we had ditched the girls that we were with, right? They were like, "Where the fuck were you guys?" And I was like, "Oh, we took Blink 182 to go see American Pie," and they're like, "Fuck you, you're bullshit," right? Like, no, 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 watch. They gave us these VIP passes. We can get on stage when Blink 182 is playing, and so they were just not having it. I said, no, 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 come on. And so then, like, we get these VIP passes. We go on stage with Blink 182, and the girls are just like, they're just floored. They had no idea that, they thought we were just full of shit because we just abandoned them, right? We were supposed to work this booth with these models that were there, and yeah, and then we ended up going to the musician dinner afterwards. So they gave us passes to like go, like Ice-T was there flipping burgers, and like got on all the tour buses, met Lit, and went on Blink 182's tour bus and took pictures with them and just hung out with like all of the musicians from the Warped Tour. And it all came from that one moment. It's like that approach anxiety, right? I mean, I guess that counts in this case, right? 'Cause this is a big time celebrity, and asking him that, and so that was pretty much the craziest thing. At least like
Epic,
so,
dude. That is epic. And you didn't flinch. Like, you had that thought. You didn't let it just die off. You're just like, okay, I gotta take action on this right now, and it just happens.
Exactly.
And it's crazy, right? Most people are just like, oh, okay, he would say no. Like, most people assume, like, okay, he's gonna say no to me. It's like, who am I? and that's super, super cool. Like, crazy story. And also, I guess last thing, where can people find more about your work and more about the stuff you put out? I know you put out a lot of content, so let's give people some links. I'm gonna, of course, link all that in the description there so they can check it out.
Okay, yeah. I mean, best place really is just to go to my YouTube channel. Just it's a Simple Programmer. I just have tons of stuff. And if you're not a programmer, really, I'll tell you a little secret. What I talk about doesn't have anything really to do with programming. Even the programming questions, I somehow twisted into the bigger principle in life, because that's the important stuff. It just happens to be my audience and my background, and and I love programmers, so I help them out. But yeah, so don't feel like you're a misfit if you come over to the channel, because I think you'll find plenty of the stuff we talked about today is really, and then I'll also put a link, or I'll give you a link for the top 10 books that I recommend, because I've got a blog post on that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's definitely all in the description below for you guys watching. I highly recommend the channel, of course. You put out a lot of great content. Take what you can resonate with the most, right? As you said, like, you don't have to be a programmer, you don't have to be any kind of specific image that or like a personality that you think, but just take what you can really resonate with the most. I'm pretty sure you're gonna find something, because there's so much value there that you will have to be able to get a lot out of it. And yeah, dude, like, really thank you for coming on. I know that you're at events right now, you're doing a lot of stuff, you're hustling, grinding as usual. Super, super exciting to have you here, share kind of your wisdom, your story, and yeah, thanks for being here, man.
Well, yeah, thank you, Mario. Mario, it's been an honor, to be on your channel. So appreciate all the work that you do as well. And you're like the person I can show people. I'm like, look at this guy, look at his fucking abs, man. Look, you can do that. Go to watch his channel. So I appreciate that, and cool. Look forward to doing the collab in the future. So
thanks, man. I'll talk to you soon. All right.
Yeah.
Peace.
Take care.